Hello everyone, Z-Slayer Dre here, and today I'll be reviewing Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, developed and published by CG Projekt Red, and is available on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. For this review, I went with the PS4 version since I do enjoy collecting the trophies. Thronebreaker is a spin-off set in the same universe as the Witcher games, but focuses on another character named Meve, who is a beautiful warrior queen of Illyria and Rivia. You move around the map, controlling Meve in an isometric view, and have card battles based off of Gwent from The Witcher 3 to simulate combat and puzzles. While players of The Witcher 3 will recognize Gwent, it has gone through some changes like removing the siege row and is almost identical to the free-to-play game Gwent. Since this is a heavily story-focused game, I will only talk about the very beginning of the story, although people who have read the Witcher book series will instantly know what event the story is leading to. You start off returning home to your capital city from a meeting with other northern leaders discussing the war with Nilfgaard. Meve had left her son Prince Willem to run the twin kingdoms of Lyria and Rivia in her absence along with her advisor Codwell, who she charged with eliminating a force of bandits. Meve is surprised to run into Codwell on her way home and is informed that the situation with the bandits has gotten out of hand. It turns out that the bandits were more cunning than anticipated and had stolen all of the gold collected by the kingdom's tax collectors. This starts off a long journey for Meve, which will lead to battles, betrayals, and forging new alliances along the way. The story features cutscenes and at times dialogue trees reminiscent of The Witcher 3. The choices you make will impact your game later on and can lead to difficult situations, and at times it will seem like no choice is a correct one. While traveling along the map, you will be able to collect gold, wood, and recruits to buy upgrades and hire soldiers, which are represented by Gwent cards, and also chests containing Gwent cards, portraits, or borders for the free-to-play game version of Gwent. While on your journey, you can also get side quests from people you meet and fight against a variety of enemies. The battles are varied into puzzles, shortened battles, and standard battles. The puzzles are all unique and present many different challenges, and they can reward unique cards for your deck or resources for upgrades. The shortened battles are simply one round of Gwent, and often have special stipulations that you have to follow in order to win the battle. If you have played The Witcher 3 or the free-to-play version of Gwent, you will be right at home with the Gwent mechanics and rule sets, but new players will have a small learning curve to overcome. Even though a row has been removed from the Witcher 3 version of Gwent, the game can be still complicated and requires strategy to win. Many battles will have a custom rule set, but in a standard battle you start by drawing 8 cards and you are allowed to redraw up to 6 cards. Unit cards will have a power rating in the top left side of the card, and when you play a card it will count towards your score for the round. Many cards will have powers, such as being able to set fire to a row of your enemy's cards, or being able to heal your damaged cards. Each turn a player is allowed to play one card, and may use all available card abilities, although with most cards you will have to wait one turn before you will be able to use the card's special abilities. You can also use your leader's power, which can change depending on what weapon you equip on Meve. Once you play a card and use abilities, you can then choose to end your turn or pass, which effectively ends your ability to play cards for the remainder of the round, while your opponent is able to play cards until they also pass. The round ends when both players have passed, and the player with the highest score will win the round. In a standard battle, you will draw 3 new cards on the second and third round, but are limited to having 10 cards in your hand at a time. Any additional cards drawn when your hand is full will send the card to your graveyard. There are many different strategies you can deploy, including losing a certain round on purpose if you do not draw the cards you want. If you choose to strategically lose a round, you can goad your enemy into wasting cards by playing any bad cards in your hand. But keep in mind, if you use your leader's ability or card ability, you must play a card in that turn. Early into the game, you'll be introduced to your camp, where you can set up your deck, upgrade your units and various other attributes, and also converse with certain special characters that join your army along the way. The special characters are tied to the story and are represented by powerful cards in your deck. Sometimes your choices can cause a character to leave your army, causing their Gwent card to be removed from your deck. Certain upgrades will allow you to purchase new cards for your deck and even upgrade your cards to have a higher strength and stronger abilities. You can also upgrade your army limit, allowing you to have a larger deck. Unique character cards can take up quite a bit of the army limit, so upgrading this can be very useful, especially early on. For Meve, you can upgrade her walking speed on the map and the amount of trinkets she can equip, which are cards that are always drawn at the beginning of each Gwent match. Now that I've gone over the basics of the game, I want to discuss what I liked and disliked about the game, along with some general thoughts. While I very much enjoyed Gwent in The Witcher 3, I do think the change helped the pace of the game and made it so the developers could simulate battles and other situations in very unique ways. I was shocked at how many distinctive and creative puzzles the development team concocted. They ranged from having to kill enemies in a unique order to having to lead a spy through an enemy camp and everything in between. I also think new cards were introduced at a good pace, making sure you always had new cards and that you could add to your deck, whether it be through upgrades or from completing a puzzle or quest. Being rewarded with unique cards made the puzzles rewarding and added to the excitement and satisfaction of figuring them out, especially when it was a difficult puzzle. Having so many cards made it possible to come up with diverse decks that all used different strategies to win. The art style was also beautiful, making the game look like a moving comic book, which fit perfectly for this style of game. Additionally, the voice acting was phenomenal across the board, which is imperative to this style of game and helped bring the characters to life. I did enjoy the story, but it did drag on at times, and it could have been shortened a bit, especially in the middle. Meve was a likable character, but she was very one-dimensional for the most part, and doing side quests is required to see other sides of her personality. As far as glitches and bugs go, I can't remember seeing any, although I did run into some performance issues later on in the game when opening up the camp screen. It would freeze my game sometimes up to 10 seconds while trying to load the camp, although I didn't experience any crashes. While there are many things to praise about Thronebreaker, there were some issues. I did like the variety of cards I was able to use throughout the game, but you're only limited to one race of cards, which after 35 hours can get very repetitive. By the end, I really wanted to try out a monster or an Nilfgaardian deck, because once I figured out a good strategy about halfway through the game, I rarely made changes to my deck. Since I only made minor adjustments towards the end, the battles got extremely repetitive. I feel like having multiple shore campaigns, allowing you to use different decks, would have been a better alternative. For instance, you could have had Meve's storyline, and once you finished it up, you could have had a Nilfgaardian campaign to mix things up. I spent 35 hours doing a completionist run, so each story arc could have been 15 to 20 hours, assuming you did all the puzzles and battles. And while the puzzles were all unique, I never really felt like their difficulty was well balanced. There were some that hit the perfect balance of fun and difficult, but most were extremely easy. Occasionally some were frustratingly difficult, and although I did manage to solve all of them, eventually there was one that had RNG elements to it that I did have to look up a solution to. Even after watching a video on how to solve the puzzle, I still had to do it 5 more times before I could get the RNG elements to go in my favor. This puzzle was the only one with RNG mechanics, but for puzzles you should never have to rely on random chance for it to be solved. There were also times when the story was at odds with the Gwent deck building. I don't want to go into story spoilers, but there was a choice to kick out a member of your army, and that person happened to be the best card in my deck. Even though for story purposes I wanted to kick that person out, I chose not to because I didn't want to lose that card since it was a central part of my deck strategy. This made the choice very frustrating and ruined my enjoyment of that particular story arc. The difficulty could have used some more fine-tuning, as I found the battles to be very easy, especially later on into the game. I played on normal difficulty, but from what I've read, even on hard, the game is not very challenging. There were also parts in the story that destroyed your resources, which was very frustrating since every time it happened I had been saving up for an expensive upgrade. This could have been handled better since there was nothing I could do to stop it. Overall, despite the game's flaws and repetitiveness, I did enjoy the game and I'm giving it a 7.2 out of 10. While reading the book series isn't necessarily needed to enjoy the story, I do think people who have read them will get more enjoyment out of it. If you are planning on reading the series, I would recommend waiting until you've read up through Baptism of Fire before playing the game. I'm curious if anyone else made choices in the game that you ended up regretting later on, or if you made story choices based on which cards you wanted in your deck. If you enjoyed the video, I'm working on other game reviews, including a Witcher 3 review, so make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel to see the reviews as soon as they come out. That's it for today, and I will see you all in the next video.